What we do know from Sam Bankman-Fried is that he, like many others, thought that he could come to Washington and buy his way into a light touch regulatory regime. It didn't work. It blew up.
Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested.
The implosion of FTX.
Justice seems to be in process.
What I want to do is make sure that we have an enduring set of market structure laws so that digital assets can flourish here in the country.
It's a tough time to be a crypto evangelist, whether you're a consumer, a regulator, or a politician. But Representative Patrick McHenry is making it his goal to maintain the credibility of digital assets. And that's why he is one of our 10 lawmakers to watch. Tell me your biggest reaction so far to the FTX hearing. What's been most surprising to you?
The biggest takeaway was, you had a fraudster who was a pretender. He was a pretender to the technology, and he was taking what is in its core an open, permissionless exchange of value and making it opaque.
But if he was able to disrupt the transparency of something, like you said, that was created for transparency, does it beg the question of, is he a bad actor or is the system bad?
No, he was taking advantage of a lack of clarity and regulation. What we have to understand in the U.S. is that we do have an open digital border, and new products will emerge. And if we don't have a regulatory regime and a rule of law that is enforced around this new technology, we're going to have our consumers fall victim to the worst actors globally, at the same time not have the innovation developed here at home. I believe in the promise of digital assets and those around the world building on blockchain technologies. And that's why I've worked and will continue to work to provide clear rules of the road for the digital asset ecosystem here in the United States.
Do you think that the SEC, for example, can copy-paste, securities regulations that are already existent over to crypto, or does it need to rewrite the rules?
Not perfectly. And that's what we have to get to the bottom of. What is a commodity? What is a security? Congress has to make that decision. If you had a regime by which existing institutions could, in an economic way, hold digital assets for customers, consumers would be less impacted by the FTX collapse.
And some crypto consumers are concerned that more regulation could impact their asset holdings even more. What is your message to them?
What we want are clear rules of the road. That doesn't necessarily mean more or less regulation. It is clear property rights to what is your asset and the means by which you hold it. And that's not more or less regulation, it's smart regulation rather than dumb regulation. That's really what I'm fighting for, smart regulation.
And in terms of your work as a lawmaker, is there a certain policy that you wish you could spend more time on?
I wish I could spend more time on financial inclusion. My father started a small business in our backyard. His first piece of equipment was a lawnmower, his second piece of equipment was a truck. It was about his ability to put 5 kids through school. And that was his dream. Your ability to go take an idea and go see if it works. And it could be a bakery, could be a coffee shop, or it could be the next generation of technology. All these things need to be possible in a vibrant American economy, and that's what I'm fighting for. That's what I spend my time thinking about, is how to help everyday folks live their dreams.